Hello, thanks for tuning in to another history video. This is History on Blair County. What you see here are some iron furnaces that operated in Blair County between 1809 and 1896. Iron ore rock was a major commodity in Pennsylvania during the iron industry. It'd be extracted and mined and taken to the furnaces to make pig iron. Thousands of workers would mine iron ore, and it'd be sent to by rail car to different blast furnaces all over Blair County and outside of Blair County. This was a major industry in Blair County that is forgotten today. With the changing from the iron industry to the steel blast furnaces, steel was a lot stronger, so the iron furnaces were slowly shutting down, pushing into the late 1890s. Iron King Peter Schoenberger owned over 10,000 acres in Blair County alone. His land holdings would be offered to the next industry leaders in Blair County. The next industry leaders, such as Jesse Hartman and P.S. Duncan, John Manning, would get into the ganister rock industry. Let's look into it. You can see how this is cut out here, and the men would come up here and they would quarry ganister rock. Ganister rock is what you see right here. It's a sandstone quartzite, and inside this ganister rock is silica, and the silica was a great material to make silica bricks, and these bricks would wrap the inside of blast furnaces, and they would put them inside these hot steel iron furnaces or steel furnaces, and it could withstand very heavy, very hot temperatures. And the mountains around central Pennsylvania are full of ganister rock, and there was about 6 mountaintops in Blair County that they would quarry ganister rock, and Sproul was a very large facility because they had their own brickyard right below these quarries. Along this mountain you can see lots of flat spots where they had narrow gauge rail beds. Here's one right here, and you can see one down here that ran along there, and they would use mules and also small steam locomotives to pull dinky cars up these small narrow gauge rail lines. Up on the top of Sproul Mountain here is one of the first quarries on the hike here. You can see how they quarried off this ledge, and this is all ganister rock, and the ganister is full of silica inside the ganister rock, and they would take this ganister rock off this mountain down to the old brickyard, which is right over here. That used to be the Sproul brickyard, and right now it's Rockland Manufacturing. But Sproul and Claysburg, lots of people moved to Claysburg because of this industry, this ganister industry, and mining and quarrying ganister rock was a very heavy industry from about 1870 till 1960. And let's keep exploring here. We're walking along the former narrow gauge dinky track, and this is where a narrow gauge rail line would have sat, and they would have used mules to pull dinky cars or small locomotives. And I think we are going to go find the spot where the incline was. We'll go look for that here now. It's pretty cool. You can see the old dinky track rails that would have once lined this whole site. These dinky tracks ran miles and miles along this mountain, and it was a necessary piece of the puzzle when it came to getting this ganister rock off the mountain. These dinky carts and dinky tracks line these mountains. The work these men did were incredible. I mean, they took this ganister rock off the mountain back in the day, they didn't have dump trucks and, you know, everything, but they would run these dinky tracks up here, and then this is a former incline. You can see how it's cut here, and there's a cut right here, and if you walk over here, here's another cut right down here, and you can see the structures down here, and you can come up from the bottom. The incline would go down to these structures, and I believe there was a scale or a loading tipple there. We'll find it at the bottom where they would run the ganister rock down to that tipple and load the rail cars, and they would continue down to the brickyards. We're here on Sproul Mountain at the old Gannister quarry. This is basically what built Sproul, village of Sproul, right outside of Claysburg. And right here we see a set of rail tracks where I believe possibly they might have loaded dinky cars from these structures above. This might have been a tipple of some sort. But what they did is they quarried ganister rock off these mountains, and they had a series of rail track that went around the mountain, as well as dinky tracks where they would take the ganister rock off the mountain and bring it down and put it on the rail tracks to take it down below. Ganister quarrying was all done on the mountainside and the mountaintops where the ganister is. I'll take you up here. Here's a structure where I believe they might have kept the locomotive in, I'm not sure, but throughout this hillside there's levels of areas where they quarried, and I think a rail bed would have went right through here, and you can see ganister rock everywhere up here where they quarried. So this is a pretty neat site. Sproul, right outside Claysburg. Here's an old railroad tie that's not much left of it, but we're standing on an old rail line that came up along Sproul Mountain, and where we're at here is all of this area was mined out for ganister rock for the Sproul brickyard where they'd make silica bricks. And you can find, you know, pieces of coal from the locomotives that ran along these mountains here. There's another railroad tie rotting out right there. But this is the Gannister quarry that was up here along Sproul Mountain. And there's many levels of this quarry. If you go up to the top, they basically simply just took the ganister rock right off the mountain, ganister stone. And that's a sandstone quartz rock that they can make silica bricks. All right, so here's one quarry here, Gannister quarry. We're going to continue going down the former dinky tracks here, and we're going to go and see if we can find some more quarries. And there's a couple neat overlooks so you can look over the town of Claysburg. It's really nice, so let's go check that out. I always like this section of the trail here. It's all covered in moss, and you can kind of see the outlines of where the railroad ties sat, kind of where like the moss is, you know, at. So it's pretty kind of like right here. You can kind of see where the railroad ties were at one point. So that's kind of neat. So, and this is a nice place to walk. It's open to the public, and it's it goes for miles up here. So these men worked on miles and miles of these along this mountain, and they would basically run the dinky cars along here. They would literally pick up the rock and throw it in the dinky carts, and that's all they did. They basically just picked up the rock and put it in the dinky cars, and it was a lot of manual labor, and they would take it down to the brickyards. I'm currently writing a book. It's called Blair County Limestone and Gannister, and I really enjoy this history about what the men did in the 1800s and early 1900s to really get America moving. So Gannister rock was heavily used in the steel industry, and they would use the Gannister rock for the inside of the blast furnaces when they made the silica bricks. So we're talking a lot of industrial revolution history that was really built up in our communities here in Blair County, and hundreds and thousands of workers around Sproul and Claysburg and Blair County were heavily involved in this history. So it's really, really cool. You can see this nice flat spot here with the dinky carts where they came through here, and there's also a dinky cart track that goes on the top of that ridge. You know, they were coring this all off up here, and then if we keep walking, we'll notice another large quarry over here. I mean, Sproul Mountain, Dunning's Mountain is full of these quarries. I mean, this Gannister rock runs for miles, and you can see these large quarries from the highway and from Claysburg where they were mining and coring this Gannister rock off the mountain. So it's impressive to see how much stone was available up here for these workers to get. Okay, so you know, look at that nice little view back there, the nice mountain laurel, rhododendrons, and we're gonna go up there and I'm gonna show you guys a nice view of Claysburg and Sproul. On my way up here, you can just see this big quarry back in here. Gannister rock, sandstone quartzite. Okay, I guess this is Indian Peak, I believe. We're at the top of this ridge up here, and it's a beautiful view down onto Claysburg and Sproul. But what an awesome view. Definitely worth the hike, and this trail is pretty easy. So like I said, you're allowed to come up here. Just there are some private areas that have posted signs, you know, further back the ridge, but right here you're allowed to access. So it's a beautiful place to explore. Here I just found a little pile of coal slag, and they had these small locomotives up here on these mountains, and they would, you know, they would pull the dinky cars with locomotives. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun researching and exploring the site. Please like and subscribe this video, and I'll see you next time.